It's raining new hi-fi gear here at Sound News HQ. First DNA just a couple of days ago, and right now Luxsin, a sister company to Eversolo and Zido that is focused mostly on providing higher-end audio gear on sound quality rather than on providing an overkill feature set. Their first road opening product is the X9, a dedicated DAC preamplifier and headphone amplifier that rocks one feature I didn't see on any other DAC-AM combos I ever tried on this YouTube channel. The X9 is going for $10.99 US or euros, and let's check it out in the usual fashion. The build quality of X9 is fantastic. It's slightly higher compared to what I usually get at this price of around $1 The front panel seems much thicker to the usual suspects, especially at the bottom. The metal feet are wider, having a bigger surface area, and the lateral heatsinks have several air vents that will move hot air outside its case. The fully CNC machined aluminum case seems sturdy, but the real star of the show is its 4-inch Full HD touchscreen tilted 15 degrees with the rest of the front panel, so you'll see the UI much easier, especially when used in a Headphone setup. I think it looks kinda cool. We have a ton of connectivity options. The unit weighs almost 4 kilos. It's on the heavier side, and right now you can get it in this two-tone silver finish with black heatsinks, having a nice contrast when sitting on the table. The unit draws some attention to it, but it's not that large, and you can easily accommodate it in a neat head-fi system. In terms of connectivity, we have 3 headphone jacks, out of which 2 are balanced connections. We get pretty much every digital input except for AAC and BNC. We even have an HDMI ARC or eARC input, a pair of analog RCA inputs in case you want to use it as a preamp, and surprise, surprise, there's even 2 subwoofer outputs. So clearly the X9 wasn't made to be used only with headphones. You can use it as a multimedia hub, playing games or watching movies on a big TV, or why not, you can use it in a full-blown stereo setup with or without a pair of active subwoofers. Its UI is quite straightforward since we have a 4-inch touchscreen. A simple swipe to the right will reveal the user menu where you can select the input, the output, play around with the general settings with all kinds of audio settings, like selecting a digital filter, the headphone gain and whatnot. You can connect it to the internet via Wi-Fi and even update its firmware over the air. A swipe to the left, however, unlocks the full potential of the X9. After enabling the FX tab, you can increase the stereo width, and yes, the soundstage is increasing not only via XLR or RCA outputs, but also via headphones outputs as well. There's a music style option that works as an equalizer. You can adjust the tone of the bass, mid-range and treble, make some of that fuller or softer, and of course you can select the cutoff frequency when adding a subwoofer or 2, change the gain and many other things. The next tab is called Crossfeed, and if you're using headphones with old recordings that use extreme stereo effects, you can play around with crossfeed and make the sound narrower and less fatiguing. Perhaps the most exciting thing is that you can select a pair of headphones from a list of around 2,500 headphones and apply a parametric EQ. Sincerely, I was very skeptical about this feature. Most of the time I use my headphones on flat without any kind of EQ applied, but in this case the change was so dramatic and so big that I almost couldn't recognize some of these headphones. For example, I have more bass thump with the Susvara, I have more mid-range energy and less treble edge with the T+A Solitaire P, and this feature has grown on me ever since. Some of the newest headphones are still not in there, for example Susvara Unveiled or HE1000 unveiled are not there yet, but I already got 2 firmware updates in 2 weeks, and I hope that the next firmware update will include at least a few of the newer headphones. You can also bypass all of these effects and EQ options and get the cleanest signal, especially when using it as a DAC. Last but not least, the default standby screen shows you a digital view meter. You have 8 different options to choose from, and if those are bothering, you can dim the display or turn it off completely. You can also control everything with the Luxsin Controller App found on the Google Play Store and on iOS Store. Absolutely every feature found on its user menu is now controllable with your smartphone. You can select the input, the output, you can engage the effects tab and HP EQ option. You can change the volume or any other general or audio setting. You can adjust the brightness of the knob of the screen and change the view meter. Everything is in there, making the plasticky remote control redundant to use. I won't talk too much about its internals, but I will mention that we have just some high quality components all around. For example, we have a custom-made linear transformer, we have a well-thought filtering and voltage regulation stage. The V-Regs, for example, stay on heatsinks. The power supply board is separated from the main board. The DAC section uses 2 pieces of flagship AKM AK4499EX with the complementary Delta Sigma modulator. The analog volume control uses a ton of ohm-RON relays, and yes, this is an R2R volume control, and you can hear the relays clicking when adjusting the volume, but don't worry, that's normal behavior. We have 2 Accu-Silicon femtosecond clocks, the 3rd Gen XMOS receiver, the latest Bluetooth receiver from Qualcomm that supports all of the fancy codecs, and all the internal wiring uses OCC silver-plated wires. The headphone amplifier section uses a combination of op-amps and discrete components. The op-amps are OPA 1612 and also TPA 6120. And it can output up to 3 watts per channel in 32 ohms and up to 16.7 volts RMS in 300 ohms, which should be plenty enough, but we will see about that in a minute. Alright everyone, that's enough with the technical and nerdy stuff, and let's focus on the sound performance of the Luxsin X9. But first of all, you should know that there are 2 very different versions of the X9. The one that uses all of those sound enhancements, soundstage with tone controls, headphone equalizer, and the other version that is not using any of that, and you can use it in bypass mode. And I decided to use it first in the bypass mode with my stereo setup that you know already, using it just as a pure DAC and leaving the preamp duties to the Chord Pre 2, followed by Chord Ultima 3 monoblocks and by Radio TD 2.2 loudspeakers. The first thing I observed is that the stereo separation, the layering in between the notes was simply better by a lot, I'd say, compared to DNA Alpha Pro. The soundstage was simply bigger, and I felt that I had more music in this room. I felt that the TD 2.2 finally sounded exactly as I know them to be, so big, very airy, with just an amazing soundstage all around me. The X9 is quite impressive in here, and if you are coming from a topping D90 discrete, maybe SMSL SUX or SU10 or AUN S9C, then the extra layering of the sound and the extra stereo separation will be hard to miss. A few seconds later, and I brought my favorite headphone, the T+A Solitherapy, and sure enough, the sound got just simply wider. I had more sound all around me dancing, something that DNA Alpha Pro was not doing so great, although DNA Alpha Pro sounded punchier and slightly more textured and more physical. The Luxsin X9 was definitely just bigger, and I felt simply more music surrounding my head. The sound became wider, as if the music itself was breathing. expanding its influence and taking more room space compared to what I heard on the previously mentioned units. While I'm not describing a massive looking R2R leather DAC, the sound is also coming from a black void of nothingness, so very similar to what I'm getting from a big looking, beastly looking R2R leather DAC. The sound is just appearing out of thin air and lets you appreciate both studio and live recordings. And the more I listen to it, the more it starts to resemble the sound of the Gustard A26 and even R26, as both of these impressed me with the stereo separation, sound width and imaging. The second thing that was quite apparent on the X9 was how effortless and easygoing and refined this one sounded compared to, say, DNA Alpha Pro, which also had a little bit of refinement. It also didn't have any kind of digitals, but this one was more impressive in this regard. I believe that it was trading a little bit of micro detail information, a little bit of sharpness, a little bit of contour of the notes, so it's not as transparent like the DNA Alpha Pro, for example, but it's definitely more easygoing and easier to enjoy with a wider variety of music. This part, you might like it, you might dislike it, but I'd say that higher end DACs usually have this trait, sounding effortless and easygoing with every musical genre. This part I personally like a lot. My reference DAC also has it because I can listen basically to anything. These two loudspeakers, the Rado TD 2.2, are extremely detailed and transparent. One of the cleanest sounding speakers that I have tried in my life, and they can show you all of the good part and all of the bad, but the bad part I don't want to hear. And that's exactly what Luxsin X9 is doing. It's a little bit rolling off parts of that, bad stuff, and leaves only a smooth, relaxed, and easygoing sound. Right now, even a few ESS Sabre converters will nicely deal with digitals, with listening fatigue, with brightness. Some of them don't have any of that, like DNA Alpha Pro, like Gustard X30, Gustard X26 the third, like Wandla, and there are many others. But the Luxsin X9 is doing all of these a little bit better. You can feel that the contrast levels are boosted on the X9, the textures feel a little bit more natural and less artificial, and finally you no longer count the number of clicks or pops in 1 century-old recordings. You just close your eyes and you go with the flow, and this is that kind of DAC. The resolution of the X9 is quite high, and considering that we have two flagship grade AK4499EX, I wouldn't be surprised to hear this amazing micro detail information, all of that stuff happening on the micro scale. But to tell you the truth, this part is not so important on the Luxsin X9. Because I don't want to discuss micro detail and tiny subtleties and the sharpness. The X9 doesn't try to steal your attention with technicalities, but mostly with a thick and bold tonality that focuses on the ritual of music listening, letting you appreciate the music flowing down like a river. As I'm slowly getting older, I'm starting to realize that all of these technicalities matter a little bit less to me every year. I care a little bit less about them, about measurements, for example, and I care a lot more about the musical enjoyment, just, toy tapping, smiling, feeling great, just feeling the vibe of the music, and this is what I'm getting with the X9. Although it's transparent and clean, it's not really, the best rate of the X9. I believe that the musical enjoyment that I'm getting from X9 is more important. This DA converter is doing my job much easier because it's fun to use and it's fun sounding at the end of the day. Dynamics can get your toes stamping and your smile wider, but I won't say that these are the highlights of the X9. I believe it's just all right in this department, but it's not something to brag about. I think it's okay in here, but if you want some stronger dynamics, maybe a deeper bass delivery or a sweeter mid-range performance, then everything is just one tap away. Just go to FX tab and enable all those tone controls and make your music a little bit jumpier and livelier. But I must confess that I enabled those only via headphones, and I like its sound in bypass mode a bit more with my stereo setup. I'd say that it's good in here. It's still a little bit thumpier compared to, say, tapping the 90 discrete, but it's not bringing the thunder like Gustav X30 is doing so easily on anything I'm throwing at it. It's somewhere in the middle of these two, and I'd say that it's on the same level with the tapping DX9. The headphone amplifier section is quite a chameleon. And let me explain to you why. For example, in bypass mode, I was able to drive all of my headphones with flying colors, including some hard to drive ones like Headphone Susvara Unveiled, T+A Solitaire P, HD800S. Although with the Susvara original, I was almost maxed out. The problem wasn't really driving these headphones. I had more than enough headroom. The problem was the tonality and also the engagement factor. The sound was a little bit too flat for my taste, and it was far from being as engaging and punchy like fully discrete amplifiers are sounding to me. So in this regard, DNA Alpha Pro was nicer controlling, the drivers of the headphones, and also it was thicker and punchier sounding. And as much as I hate using EQ with headphones, I later simply searched for my headphones, I engaged Headphone HQ, and voila! From a flat and uninteresting sound, all those T+As and Sennheisers and Hyphemans became so much better. I believe that the biggest change I felt with the T+A Solitaire P and also with the HD800S. With the Sennheiser, for example, the sound got weightier and the mid-range was much thicker sounding. Also, the bass was much more playful. With the T+A Solitaire P, the trebles were not as tiresome in long listening sessions, and the bass was even stronger than before. So everything that was okay was now outstanding, and everything that bothered me was no longer bothering me. So the change is actually quite substantial. Again, I was very skeptical to use this feature, but it works and it does some miracles with some of these headphones. This feature is quite a game changer, and I wish all future headphone amplifiers will have it. Of course, it's almost impossible, but still it's really fun to use. It's addictive to use, and I slowly started checking the rest of my headphones, and all of them sounded quite different, getting energized and, dare I say, a lot more vivid in comparison to the bypass mode. I wasn't able to find all of my headphones from that list, but I hope more of them will be added in future firmware updates. You can sleep tight if you are an IEM user, because as much as I have tried on that first and second gain position, 16 and 32 ohm gain position, I simply couldn't detect anything playing in the background. With music composed, with music playing, inserting and disconnecting IEMs, no white noise, no noises whatsoever. It was simply dead silent with every IEM in my collection. So yes, this is a very IEM friendly unit, and you can search for your IEMs from that headphone equalizer list. I believe there are several hundred IEMs available that will further enhance your listening experience. The only feature I couldn't try at my place, I'm sorry, was the subwoofer output, and let me explain to you why. You see, I'm a hardcore music lover first and then an audiophile later on. I care a lot about the act of music listening. I want to be carried away by music, and I don't care much about everything else. You see those Radio TD 2.2 loudspeakers, those are not so big, right? But the bass they produce is absolutely crazy. I had so much bass at first that I was simply forced to buy the biggest bass traps that I could find online. Those are Art Novium bass traps. They weigh around 42 kilo a piece. I have two pieces, and the bass is going down by around 6 dB, so everything is much clearer in this room and I have less bass. And everything is much more controlled. So maybe in another room I could test some subwoofers, but right here in this place I have sometimes a little bit too much bass. I want to calm it and don't want more of it. So I'm sorry I cannot use some subwoofers with this Luxsin, but hey, there are many other X9 videos dropping very soon, and maybe those guys can test the subwoofer output. Alright everyone, now let's count all of the pros and all of the cons. First of all, this is not one of the hard slamming DAC, especially in bypass mode. Dynamics were okay, but not really outstanding, and its headphone amplifier section in bypass mode was just kind of flat, kind of boring, and not that emotionally attaching me with the music like a fully discrete headphone amplifier would do. However, once I engaged that headphone equalizer function and I searched a pair of my headphones and engaged it, the sound simply shifted 180 degrees. What was flat was now alive and vivid, and what was basslight became deep reaching and hard hitting. And no matter what sound enhancement you choose, it will always deliver a refined and easygoing sound, and you should never ever think about trebles getting edgy or artificially sharp, as it doesn't have any of that. The full body tone, the easygoing sound, the massive 3D soundstage, and also the almost unlimited potential of its headphone amplifier section are what makes this unit truly unique. And I believe only those sound enhancements are making this one so different compared to anything I tried in the past. I experienced something similar on portable devices, on hybrid devices more exactly, but on desktop devices is something new. And if everything I just mentioned resonated with you, then I will recommend the Luxsin X9 to you. Okay guys, thank you for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing if you found this video helpful, and please let me know if you think that Luxsin X9 is something unusually cool or is just a regular DAC combo. What you think about this one? Please let me know in the comment section below. Keep rocking, and I'll see you very soon. Cheers!